Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first video of Euro Fantasy 2024. Yes, if you don't know already, we are covering the Euros this year. I'll be joined by Zoff and Pras as well, and we're doing substantial content throughout the Euros. So if you want to tune in, make sure you're clicking on the subscribe button. Now, with this video, I intend to tell you how to play Euro Fantasy and why you should play Euro Fantasy. If you're like me, who's like a noob, who doesn't have that much knowledge about international football and a little skeptical, let me just tell you that this game isn't that difficult. We're with you through the journey, so you will understand it, and it just elevates the watching the Euros experience, which is why I'm playing the game, which is why I've been diving into research in the last 5-6 days, and I tell you, it's not that difficult. Also, why you should play this game is because in the group stages there are about 3 match days, what you call game weeks. There are 3 game weeks. There are 3 match days. Now, the first match day is when you require your research extra, which is what we're going to help you with. And then you can select your teams in match day 2, match day 3, based on the information and the football that you've seen in match day 1. So it isn't going to be that difficult. Now, with this video, I aim for it to be like a 10-15 minute video to just briefly introduce you to the game, how to play the game, what you're required to do, and let you know that it's actually a lot of fun. Now, these are the groups that you see in the Euros. We have 6 groups, and each group has 4 teams. I like playing the Euros because there's a lot more teams that we are familiar with when we watch the European leagues, when we watch the Champions League, right? With a lot of players that you must have come across as well. So it isn't as random as I sometimes see the teams and players in the World Cup, where we don't really know the teams from Africa or some of the teams from Japan. Now, let's break down this game for you. Now, this game is like FPL. You have 100 million to build a squad of 15. In this tournament, though, the squad of 15 is quite important because I think all the 15 players come into play. I'll explain later how and why. Uh, that's during the group stages. During the knockout stages, where you have the pre-quarters, the quarters, the semis, and the finals, you have 105 million to build a squad. That's obviously because the better teams normally tend to progress further into the squad, so it becomes difficult to build a squad with the 100 million budget, and they're letting you have fun. So that's one of the reasons why it's easier to build a team in the knockout stages. Now, I've already hinted to you that there are about 7 match days. Match days equal game weeks, and match days aren't actually just days. One match day spreads over a period of 3 to 4 days, especially in the group stages. We'll talk about that a little later. Now, you have unlimited substitutions, obviously, until match day 1. The deadline for match day 1 is the kickoff time for the first game. So you will have information about the teams, in this case Germany, before you set up your team. During the group stages, there are 3 match days in the group stages. You're allowed 2 transfers between each group stage. Then you get unlimited transfers again before the round of 16. And then after the round of 16, between the quarters, you get 3 subs. Between the quarters and the semis, you get to make 4 free substitutions. And before the final, you get to make 5 free substitutions. Now, I'll talk about this and chip strategy a little later because it gets quite interesting. For the group stages, you can have a maximum of 3 players from one team. So you can have only 3 players from England, 3 players from Spain, Italy, etc. In the round of 16, because the teams are fewer, you can have 4 players from each team. In the quarterfinals, you can have 5 players from each team. In the semifinals, you can have 6 players from each team. And in the final, you can have 8 players from each team. As you saw already, what happens is the opportunity to gain rank and to be better than your opponents and your competition is in the first 3 sort of match days. And this is sort of accentuated with the use of chips. You have 2 chips. You have an extra wildcard, and you have a chip called limitless chip. Now, know that you have a free wildcard handed to you by the game outside of this wildcard chip anyway, because you're allowed unlimited substitutions before the round of 16. Now, most people generally tend to play both their chips in match day 2 and match day 3. So you're essentially having 3 free hits in match day 1, match day 2, and match day 3, which is why I urge you to play this game, because as long as you're doing research and have a decent match day 1 team, you can build your free hit match day 2 team and match day 3 team based on what you've seen from the Euro. So it's definitely not that difficult. Wildcard is like an FPL wildcard where you're allowed to make unlimited number of substitutions. You don't have an unlimited budget, and the team doesn't reset. So if you play a wildcard in match day 2, then that same team stays for match day 3. Then obviously you have unlimited substitutions before the round of 16. People tend to play the wildcard in either match day 2, match day 3, or after or before the quarterfinals. If a big team has an upset or anything of that sort. And then there is something called the limitless, which is basically the wildcard on steroids, where you're allowed to make it's actually the free hit on steroids because you're allowed to make as many changes in your team. That team is selected only for one game week or one match day, as we call it, and you have no budget limit. So that's the chips that we have. Let's take you through the scoring. It's very similar, just like FPL. You get 1 point for appearance. You get 2 points for spending 60 minutes on the pitch. A couple of interesting changes that you have from FPL is that you get an extra point for a goal scored from outside the box. So think free kick specialist. Think somebody like Bruno Fernandes who likes to take a shot from outside the box. It gives you an extra point for goals scored from outside the box. You get 3 points for an assist, but for a penalty one, you get 2 points. One additional rule is that for every 3 balls recovered, you get 1 point. So players like Rodri, players like Declan Rice, etc., who tend to be midfield maestros who are somewhat ignored in FPL, they come into play here because the floor is high, where they should get 2 points for the 60 minutes, they should get 1 point for a clean sheet, and then they can get 2 or maybe even 3 points for ball recoveries. On the pod that we'll be doing on Tuesday with Pras and Zoff, we will be looking at ball recovery data as well when we're presenting some players to you and we're discussing the options for players from the different teams. Other rules are quite standard: 2 points for winning a penalty, -1 point for conceding a penalty. That will go to your defender or goalkeeper or midfielder. Missing a penalty is -2 points, yellow card is -1, red card is -3, own goal is -2. 4 points for a goal scored by a forward, 5 points by a midfielder, 6 points by a defender. You get 4 points for clean sheets for goalkeepers and defenders. Very similar rules to FPL. A midfielder gets an extra clean sheet point as well. Now that's basically it. It's very similar to FPL. You have 3 match days in the group stages, and you have 4 match days in the knockout stages. This is what your match day 1, 2, and 3 is going to look like. It's not that difficult. This is all you have in terms of the fixture ticker and that you need to analyze. Now, what you see here in terms of the order of matches is quite important. We're going to break this down a lot further when we go into the pod on Tuesday and the other pod that we do with Pras and Zoff. But as you can see, Germany in Group A, Germany has Scotland is not that difficult fixture early on, and they've got Hungary and then they've got Switzerland. Now, when you're determining that chip strategy, you're looking for pairs of teams if you're not planning to use all the 3 chips in the group stages. I think you should use all the chips in the group stages because it maximizes fun. And there's no history saved in UEFA Fantasy, right? So you got to go for broke, in my opinion. And the biggest point to differentiate is in the group stages, because as the teams progress in the knockout stages, players become similar and similar. There is lesser opportunity to differentiate in the group stages. So that's my thinking behind the chip strategy. But that said, if you're worried that if a favorite gets knocked out in the round of 16 and you need to make multiple transfers for the quarterfinals, and you're worried about that and you want insurance and you don't want to play both the chips in the group stages, then you look for pairs where, for example, all the teams that are slightly big have tough round of fixtures in match day 2. Like Spain's got Italy. Then Denmark's got England. France has got Netherlands. So there are some tricky fixtures in match day 2. So, you probably pay like a limitless trip in match day 2. Then you have the same team for match day 1 and match day 3 because the big teams have similar, easier fixtures. You pair it out and see what you want to do. I don't think you need to commit to chip strategy in terms of what you want to do in match day 2 immediately, because you could just fluke into having a really good team. But that said, I think I'm going to just use both my chips in match day 2 and match day 3, have 3 free hits and see where I am left from there. Now, this is match day 1, all right? Now, why this is really important is because this game has something called in-game management. Now, Champions League fantasy players must be knowing about this. I haven't played Champions League fantasy. I played Euros fantasy 8 years ago, and I remember it was a lot of fun. This, in terms of the schedule, is quite important because you see here that Germany has the game on the 14th of June. Then on 15th of June, Spain has a game and Italy has a game against Croatia. Spain versus Croatia, Italy versus Albania. On 16th of June, Poland has a game against the Netherlands and Serbia has a game versus England. On 17th of June, Belgium has a game versus Slovakia. On 18th of June, Portugal has a game versus the Czech. Now, why this is important is because of something called in-game management. Now, what you can do is In a particular match day, you are allowed to change your captain multiple times and you're allowed to make maximum of 4 subs. There's a sort of like a stick or twist philosophy. Now, I'll explain this better. They have a nice option to filter the dates when you're looking at the uh, UEFA fantasy game page. You know, you have a nice little filter option. Put the dates in there so that you're making sure you've got an even spread of players across all dates and you've got a captain on all date. So let's say in match day one, Kai Havertz isn't my best captain. I actually want Kylian Mbappe as my captain. But as you see, he's on my bench here. That's because he plays on the 18th of June. I'm going to probably try striving for having a captain on every single day in match day one. So Havertz is my captain on match day one, which is 16 June. Harry Kane as my captain. On 18th June, I'll have Kylian Mbappe as my captain. And on 19th June, I'll have Bruno Fernandes as my captain. Now, you don't keep changing your captains. Let's say on the 17th of June, if Kai Havertz scores a brace or has 2 goals and assist in match day one only, you don't need to change your captain. You stick. But if he scores just 1 goal, you wonder whether you can do better with the better captaincy opportunities that you have in the future. So if Havertz blanks, then obviously I'm going to change my captain to DiMarco on the next day. If he blanks, then I'm going to change my captain to Harry Kane the next day. Now, if Harry Kane braces, I'm happy with that. I don't think the other captains can probably beat a brace. I stick with it and I don't change my captain. So every day you can change your captain. And the deadline for this is quite important because it's not mentioned in the rules. You can change your captains and you can make substitutions before the first game of the day. So let's say if Germany versus Scotland, Kai Havertz is my captain, he blanks. Then on the next day, I want a Spanish player as my captain. Now, Spain plays at 6 o'clock UK time. Hungary versus Switzerland is 3 o'clock UK time. I want to make sure I change my captain before 3 o'clock. So the deadline for in-game management is the first game of the next day. And then you need to make sure you're making your subs and your captaincy changes before the first game of the next day. And you can't go back. Let's say Havertz has got a goal and assist. And then on the next day, you have DiMarco, he blanks. Then you have Kane, he blanks. You can't go back to Havertz. You can't captain a player who's already played. It's always forward thinking only. Similarly, that's why you see on my substitutes bench, I have players who are playing later in match day one. So it's a sort of a stick or twist, similar like the captaincy, where I have uh, Wirtz and Middlestat playing on match day on the first day of match day one. They blank, and I think I'm not happy with their scores. I can bring in Hernandez and Mape in for them if they blank. So there's in-game management as well. Again, similar to captaincy, this is forward thinking, and the deadline, as mentioned, is before the first game of that day. So whether that's UK time, you need to make sure that you're making your changes before 3 o'clock UK time, and for India time, I think it's about 6:30, 7:30 India time. So you're make sure you make your changes. This is how the game works. The in-game management is a fantastic part. You're tuned in. It's not much hard work and maintenance, in my opinion. I think it makes the game much more fun, much more active, and there's opportunity to take some risk. It's always when your player has about 8 or 9 points and you're wondering whether to stick or twist. That's going to be a difficult decision. And the good thing is, teams like France and Portugal have their games and Belgium have their games in the latter half of the match day. So going back, revisiting, just the rules for you guys, right? You're allowed to make as many match day changes as you can, but between each match day, you're allowed 2 free substitutions, but you can use a chip, and it's like 3 separate free hits in the 3 different match days. I think that explains it. I don't need to, sort of delve into this further. What we're going to do when we present to you data and teams that we're covering, how we're planning to go about this tournament is, also one thing I forgot about the rules that's quite important is that if, let's say, DiMarco plays and he gets a red card, I can't substitute him out. Any player that gets a red card can't be substituted out, even though if it's for a player at a later date. The red card sort of locks the player in your starting 11. But if any of my midfielders, etc., are blanking and I want to substitute them for my bench, I can do that. This is specific to each match day. I think you guys have understood, right? So in-game management is specific to each match day. You can play chips in any particular match day. I recommend playing them in match day 2 and match day 3 to maximize fun. And the number of transfers allowed are 2 transfers between each match day, and then what I explained further, right? What I explained earlier. Right here. You're allowed two transfers per match day, then you're allowed 3 transfers before quarters, 4 transfers before semis, and 5 transfers before finals. You're getting a new team for the knockout stages anyway. That's about it. That's why people are going to vary a little bit on a chip strategy, because they're like, do they want that insurance? Oh, I can picture Pras saying that, but Pras has told me that he's looking at Limitless Match Day 2 and Limitless Match Day 3. What might come into play also, that might be handy in terms of chip strategy, something for you guys to think, is if the stronger teams or any of the teams are securing their round of 16 spot by winning the first 2 games. So then there is nothing to play for. They might rest some of their important players in match day 3, and there's rotation as well. That's why chips tend to be useful in match day 3, where we tend to focus on the teams that have something to play for. Obviously, we're going to delve into this deeper when we look at the players and teams. I think that's it when it comes to all the rules, etc., that we're going to cover. What you're going to expect on the pod that we're going to be doing on Tuesday. I'm going to be joined by Zoff and Pras, and we are going to cover all the teams in Group A, Group B, and Group C. So we're going to be covering Germany, Scotland, Hungary, Switzerland, Spain, Croatia, Italy, Albania, Slovenia, Denmark, Serbia, and England. Then we're going to be doing a pod at a later stage during the week or before the tournament begins, covering all the teams in Group D, E, and F. So to follow us throughout, make sure you're clicking on the subscribe button. If you've liked this little concise video that I've done, make sure you hit the like button as well. And we're going to be doing Euros content throughout the Euros. So make sure you're tuned in, etc. as well. What sort of data that Pras has already sent me that you can expect on the pod on Tuesday. We are looking at, this is something that's done by 11F5, where we've got like predicted clean sheet odds. We've got predicted goal scored odds. We're going to be looking at ball recovery data for different players, etc. as well. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I think this game is just going to be a lot of fun. I'm quite excited just presenting this video to you. And I think you should play the Euros, man. The only thing where people might be intimidated about playing this game is they might think that they require a lot of knowledge and research. Watch our first 2-3 videos, or just get the popular players. It's not that difficult. And then based on what you've seen in the first match day, you can make your free hit teams based on the chips that you use in match day 2 and match day 3. It's not that difficult. Join us. Play the game. If you're playing, we've already created a league for the FPL Wire. The league code is small caps Y, big caps D, A, small caps SN, SS, big caps N. YDASSN. I'm going to paste the league code in the link in the description below. You can join the league, and I think that's about it, man. Have fun with this game. History just don't get saved. So, don't be scared of having a poor season. Nobody's going to care. So, the whole aim of this game is to try having like a top 1K rank or a top 500 rank, or try to win the whole thing. And, by the time quarterfinals come and you're out of it, you're out of it. But you've gained a lot of knowledge. A lot of these players are Premier League players, and you've elevated your fantasy experience while watching the Euros. I think that's it from me. Make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button. This is my first solo attempt in a while. We're going to be doing a lot more of that. Just a little hint in terms of Zoff, Pras, and I already had a FPL planning meet. We're going to have 2-3 of more. But what we're committing to is, outside of our main pod, all 3 of us are going to be doing team selection videos every week. So you can follow us through our FPL journey, through our transfer journey. We're going to be doing 10-15 minute videos with our team selection every week for FPL. If there's any other content that you want us to do for FPL as well, let us know in the comments below. And enjoy the Euros. I hope this video has convinced you to join. That's it from me. Take care. Bye-bye. See you Tuesday.